Hi, my name is Tatiana, and I'll be talking to you today about Native Americans, race, the Bible in America, and settler colonialism. So, my question to you today is, what does the Bible have to do with Native Americans and settler colonialism? As I mentioned before, I also want to talk to you about race, and I'll begin to define race. Race is a social construct based on biological features. So this means hair texture, skin color, etc. So an example I want to give to you is like myself. I will be identified racially as an African American because I have darker skin, wider nose, bigger lips, my hair texture, obviously. So that's race. Southern colonialism, though, don't get confused with the idea of colonialism and southern colonialism because they are two different things. For one, colonialism, I will give an example, is like we can take the Roman Empire. The Romans had different colonies. And so what that means is there was Rome, mainly in Rome, and then you have like different places. So like you had like I want to say like let's take like Jerusalem or like the or yeah, Jerusalem for example. That was a Roman colony. It was controlled by Rome. However, and it was considered Rome. However, it wasn't mainly in Rome. But what makes that different from settler colonialism is when settler colonialism has the intent to wipe out what was once there. So basically, we take colonialism and we basically try to, you know, so basically with colonialism, assimilation is the key. There are people there and you make them assimilate to your ideals. However, with settler colonialism, they either assimilate or you destroy. Um, you want to wipe them out. So there's nothing left except for what you have brought. All right. So that the intent is to to wash away the sins with like water or fire with the means to purify. So I want to give you a background as to why this is important. America's roots are tied in race, like um, from uh, when America was first early settled. There was slavery, and this was the enslavement of Africans because they thought these people back in that time thought that Africans were inferior to them based off of these biological physical features. So because someone was a darker skin, they were inferior um, to white people. Um, so also what I want to also state is that how does this go with like the Bible? So America also considers themselves a Christian nation. The early colonists were in fact Christian, maybe a different sect. So you had Puritans, you had Quakers, you had all different types of Christians, but they identified themselves as Christian. So then my question is, how can a Christian nation justify wiping out a group of people and still think they are following the ideas of Jesus and God? Jesus taught about loving your enemies, and I'll be reading from the Didache, chapter 1, verse 3, and that states, sorry, it says, in the doctrine of these maxims as it follows, bless them that curse you and pray for your enemies. Fast on behalf of those that persecute you. For what thank is there if ye love them that love you? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? But do ye love them that hate you? and ye not have an enemy. Basically, love thy enemy is what Jesus basically taught. Turn the other cheek, walk the extra mile, things like that. Also, I'll be reading chapter 2, verse 7. And it states, "Thou shalt not hate any man, but some shall, but some thou shalt confute concerning some thou shalt pray, and some thou shalt love beyond thy own soul." Basically meaning hate is not something that is taught. Something that, well, I wouldn't say taught. Hate is not something that is ideal. You shall not hate someone else. Like, you shall love them. So this idea that people are inferior, is that not rooted in hate? Something that is obviously in the New Testament frowned upon. It's actually a sin. So that tends to go with that. So how does this justify Southern colonialism? Southern colonialism is teaching to wipe out a group of people because, well, I don't want to say it's rooted in hate. However, also the Bible teaches thou shalt not kill anyone either, right? So if I'm being told to love my enemy and I should not kill, how does this justify the wiping out of Native Americans? Because remember, Native Americans obviously were the indigenous people here before colonialism. However, they represent less than 1% of this country. That's crazy, isn't it? People who were indigenous represent less than 1% of the country. Alright. So then I can oppose my argument by stating God's covenant with Abram. Right? So I'll be reading Genesis Genesis 15:12 up to 21. And that states, "As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with their great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites sorry, has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking fire pot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of of Egypt, to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kizites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephraites, the Rephraites, the Merites, the Canaanites, the Gilgashites, and the Jebusites." Right? So basically what God is saying is that he's like, his covenant with Abram was basically saying that the group of people that I mentioned in the last couple of verses will they have inhabited the land, and God is giving Abram's descendants these people's land, so they will in the fourth generation come to this land and claim it as their own. So with that being said, does that really justify settler colonialism? You have a group of people who have already been established, they have their own language, they have their own culture, and then another group of people come in and say, hey, this land is actually mine. So then I can also read that this was promised, and in other verses in the Bible, God told the people in Exodus 30 to kill the Canaanites for for what was in their land. So I'll be reading Exodus 23, 30, verse 31 to 33. And that states, I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you shall drive them out before you. You shall make no covenant with them or give them or with them or their gods. You shall not dwell in your you they shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their God, it will surely be a snare to you. So basically saying that you shall not covenant with these people. Basically, you shall not intermingle with these people. These people are different from you. These people don't worship the same God as you. And if you were to mingle with these people will make you sin against me. However, how does that go with the idea that was taught by Jesus, who is the Son of God, that you shall love thy enemy? If you come into a land, you shall not covenant with the people. However, does wiping out or almost genocide equate to what he was talking about? Some people view the Bible with their own interpretation. So you can read the Bible, you can read that and think to yourself, okay, it's right that I take this land. It's right that I kill these people because they don't worship the same God as me. They remind you, Native Americans didn't believe, they weren't Christian. They were more so believed in spirits, and they grew their hair long. They obviously very different from these English settlers. So how is it that these English settlers can say that they're Christian and say that they believe in Jesus and what Jesus taught, when Jesus taught them to love thy enemy, and then use Exodus to justify killing these group of people? So then I pose another. So then my final question to you is: if God is loving and caring and merciful, how does settler colonialism, the act of essentially genocide, justified by God? Or is it just what man interpreted as a way to rationalize their cause? Basically meaning, is it really God's word that we're reading? Or is it what someone else interpreted as God's word to say to justify colonialism and killing off a group of people? Because remember, the Bible has been used to start wars for many people. For example, the Holocaust, or the Holy Fire. Hitler killed these group of people, almost wiped out an entire nation because he thought that his cause was justified by God. Many have thought that their cause was justified by God, and as a result, nations have suffered. Millions of people have been killed. So, what God are we really listening to? Or are we only listening to man and his ego? So, I'll leave you with that.